Welcome to Perspectives El Paso. I'm Professor Leon Blevins, Professor of Government at El Paso Community College. This date that I'm sitting and talking to you is November the 3rd of 2013. About 2 weeks ago, I was walking into this building, coming to this studio to do a television interview, and as I walked up the steps outside of the building, a man started yelling, "Mr. Blevins, Mr. Blevins," and I said, "Yes." And he said, "I'm Art," and he told me his last name. And then he said, "I was in your class 20 years ago, and you haven't changed a bit." I said, "Well, you just can't see the changes." And then I bade him farewell, and I walk into this building just inside the door, and suddenly I see a woman rounding the corner, and she starts yelling, "Mr. Blevins, Mr. Blevins," and she runs up and hugs me, and she says, "Mr. Blevins, I'm Mimi Duran, and I was in your class 20 years ago." I said, "Oh my goodness, this is like an echo. I just heard that out front, now I hear it inside." And I said, "What have you been doing these last 20 years? And she says, "What I've been doing here recently is I'm working for Project ARRIBA." I said, "Well, I've interviewed people from Project Bravo and other social and non-governmental programs." And I said, "I need to interview you." And she said, "No, you don't need to interview me. You need to interview my supervisor, my boss." She said, "I'm a field director and going out into the field and working with clients with Project ARRIBA." So very soon after, she gave me her card. Very soon after that, I get a call from the gentleman that is sitting beside me today, Mr. Roman Ortiz. Did I get it right?
Perfect.
Roman, good to have you on this show.
Good to meet you.
See, I would never have met you if it had not been for Mimi.
She's a great woman. She really is.
That's good. Well, she sent me a nice email complimenting my class for when she was in it years ago, and I appreciate those little strokes. They're very, very nice to come our direction. And I'm glad that she is doing something that she is enjoying to do the work. And I've interviewed a lot of people in the last several months that are in social service agencies of one kind or another. I scrolled on the internet yesterday. I simply typed in Project ARRIBA in El Paso, Texas, and it brought up a website there. And I noticed that you had to the left a number of boxes you could check to get information, and I did that. I also scrolled and I saw some groups and individuals that support your work. Now I'm going to leave it up to you to tell our audience, what is the purpose of Project ARRIBA?
Well, sure. Well, Project ARRIBA is a nonprofit organization that was started around 14 years ago. And our main mission is to be able to increase the workforce and economic development of this great community of ours by bringing people who would not have an opportunity to be able to complete college or even start college, and giving them an opportunity to succeed in finishing in college. Professor Blevins, as you very well know, students need a lot of support, and especially here in El Paso, the types of demographics that we're working with is unlike anything in the nation. And with that being said, people need an additional amount of support to be able to get through college. And what I'm talking about there is we need to make sure that people understand what kind of jobs are available here in this region, and how do I get to become one of those jobs, and how do I get to be one of those jobs. And so what we do as an organization, we go out and we talk to employers and we ask them, we say, "Employer, what are your needs? What are your future needs in the next 18 to 24 months? And will those jobs pay what we call a family-sustaining living wage with benefits and a career path?" Here in El Paso, the main need is going to be in healthcare, particularly in nursing, as well as other demand occupations like information technology and other demand jobs that are out there. We make sure that there's employers that are needing those types of skills so that then we can go out into the community, and now we talk to people and we tell them, here are the types of jobs that we know are going to be available when you graduate from college. And those jobs are in healthcare, or in information technology, or in business, or in trades. And we give them the avenue to being able to go through college by providing what we call a wraparound support. So someone will come into our program, they may hear about us through word of mouth, or through other students, or through our partnership with our community-based organization partner called Paso and Border Interfaith, through their member institutions. And people will hear about this type of help, and they'll come and sit in an orientation, At the orientation, they hear about the jobs that are in demand here in El Paso. We tell them, here are the types of things we are going to be asking of them. And here's the next steps that you wouldn't be able to take until you become eligible for sponsorship. Once somebody has gone through those 6 steps, and those 6 steps would include things like testing for adult basic education, an assessment test to help us understand what kind of job is best suited for you, really look at your income and your expenses, really give you a roadmap to success, and at the very end, actually doing a job interview with me where we interview that individual. Once they become sponsored, then they start their partnership with Project ARRIBA. Most of our students, our participants, are going to school here at the El Paso Community College, most of them studying in the healthcare industry, and they get connected with case managers like Mimi Duran from Project ARRIBA, as well as others in our organization, that really keeps them focused and grounded and accountable in being able to finish college. So every week, participants will meet with our case managers. In those weekly meetings, there's workshops that help them develop them to become better employees. So while they're going to college, they're getting the soft skills that are needed for today's marketplace at Project ARRIBA. We also help them with wraparound support that would include things like tuition assistance or emergency rent, daycare, those types of things, so that by the time they finish college in the next 2.5 years, this person has a higher probability of success, which means they have a higher graduation rate, and they are qualified to become really great employees once they finish and get out into the job market.
Okay, sponsorships. I noticed on that list that I scrolled by last night that you have quite a few businesses. You have some individual names, and some say previous Project ARRIBA. Tell us about this. Some of the companies that are helping these students, and some of these students that are now helping other students.
Correct. As a nonprofit organization, we run our organization as a business, and we know that there needs to be a return on that investment. And I'll speak a little bit to that in just a few. But what makes Project ARRIBA unique is that we have a key partnership mindset. We know that we need to partner with individuals, with foundations, with private corporate partners, as well as with government entities, both at the state, the federal, and the local level. And what we have instituted in the last couple of years is an alumni program that Project ARRIBA right now is on track to graduate its 1,000th participant from Project ARRIBA.
Wow.
That means 1,000 families that have been changed, that have gone through poverty, gone through a college education, and are now getting into really great jobs. And what we're now asking those participants is paying it forward. And so what we're doing is our case managers like Mimi will call graduates and see how they're doing, not only just to get an investment, but more importantly because we follow up with those graduates up to 5 years, just to see how well they're doing. Are they progressing in their employer partnership? Are they buying a house? All those types of good things. But then also to help them understand that this is a good opportunity for them to pay this forward. And every dollar that is raised through this campaign where a graduate donates or invests in Project ARRIBA, 100% of those dollars go straight to helping some other student that was in the same situation. No administrative dollars are used for that. No overhead is being paid through that. It's straight to help the direct costs of another student in their situation. And so we feel that that's been a great model. We want that to grow. And so I encourage, if there's any of our graduates looking today at this show, that they would consider paying it forward again and to be able to invest back into Project ARRIBA.
Well, that's a good spot then to get you to put a telephone number up or a website if you want to do that. Go ahead.
Sure. You know, the easiest way to invest in Project ARRIBA is to check out our website, www.projectarriba.org. And on our main homepage, we have a donate button. Now that donate button will take you to our PayPal account. And from there, it's easy. You just sign up and you can give a one-time investment, or you can give multiple times investments. And it's not really the dollar figure that we are harping on. We want to make sure that people understand that this organization is growing from within, growing its own. We're taking El Pasoans who want to have a better future, who don't want to leave this region, who want to stay and work and play here and work here and raise their families here, but they're finding it almost impossible to being able to get into good jobs because they don't have the skills that employers are looking for. Great institutions like the community college can provide those skills. We also work very closely with UTEP. They can provide those skills. But what ends up happening, not just in El Paso, but nationwide, is that there's a disconnect sometimes from helping a student get through college and into a living wage job. There has almost been something where those two entities may not have talked. Employers and training institutions and community partners, they don't talk to each other. But when we have a rich region like El Paso, that most of our population is between the ages of 18 and 45, and you've got most of those people young and prime of their life, they're multi-language, they've got a family sense, but unfortunately we're the third poorest county in the entire nation. It begs the question, what's wrong? What are we not doing right? And I think one of the things that El Paso, for so long, it's been a haven for low-wage jobs. And you hear stories from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s that are sometimes scary to hear, that people would come to El Paso strictly for low wages. Well, now in 2013, we know that the only way for people to get into great jobs is for them to be highly skilled. And we've got jobs here in El Paso, people that want to hire them. And Project ARRIBA is a great mechanism to help someone get through college.
I can remember some of those scary years, late 70s, early 80s. I was teaching a night class every semester, and some of these people, middle-aged, were coming into the classes. They said they got a little federal money for retraining. Levi's was leaving, Farrah was leaving, and all of these. And some of them were saying something like this: Mr. Blevins, I need more time and more money than I have to get an associate's degree, and especially a bachelor's degree. The money's going to run out before I get that particular training, the degree. Now, in many cases, you're looking at specialized training without necessarily a BA or something of that nature, right? It might be a nursing degree or some technology field that they're in. Tell us about that.
Sure, I think you hit on a very perfect point. When funding comes from, say, the federal government to help retrain individuals, it's a Band-Aid, because what ends up happening is you're taking somebody that didn't have much of a skill level, but they didn't need it for this job that they had that was paying them a very good wage because they had been there a long time. Well, once those jobs left to Mexico and China, then you were left with a vacuum of individuals who had no skill, but were used to a pay scale that was considerably high. And so what ends up happening, if you get retrained for a job and you already don't have high enough skills, that the short-term training concept of investing in somebody for maybe 9 months, for 12 months, and then expecting that that person is going to get to the same rate of pay that they left is almost impossible. Why? Because you first need to look at, well, employers are needing a higher skilled workforce. Today, employers are needing not only people that graduate with at least an associate's degree, but really a bachelor's degree as well. But they're also looking for individuals that have the soft skills that I believe has been lost with our generation. The soft skills of being able to interview well, the soft skills of being able to dress for success, the soft skills of being able to write a good resume, to be able to speak. All those things are lost with our generation. And so one of the key aspects of Project ARRIBA is to be able to take this population who we know have what we call las ganas, to want to complete college, but cannot get to the next level because they've got so many life barriers. And those life barriers are very common. They could be where they're a single parent, they've got 2 children, they live in poverty, they may be paycheck to paycheck or underemployed. And so now you expect this individual who is going through all that risk to go through college and go full-time, and then Pell Grants are not even enough to cover the entire tuition costs because they still need to have all the supplies and the uniforms and all the other things that are required for a program. So ARRIBA was formed with the concept that we need to make sure that we are focused on long-term training. Not training that's going to take forever and that's going to cost a lot of money, but training that's going to have an output. Professor Blevins, Project ARRIBA, as I mentioned, is on track to graduating its 1,000th participant. But on average, it takes 2.5 years for a participant to start, to finish, and to become job placed at Project ARRIBA. When they start our program, the demographic is as follows. She's 33 years old, she has 2 children, she's single, she's on welfare, and possibly other types of general assistance. So here you go, a very young person with a family, and within 2.5 years, we're able to move her into a job that last year, on average, Professor, paid her $43,000 a year with benefits and a career path. She's now 35, and she has another 30 work years of life ahead of her. In fact, Institute for Policy and Economic Development out of UTEP did an impact study on Project ARRIBA, and what they found was astonishing. What they found was, of the graduates so far, the return on investment has been phenomenal. That for every dollar invested in Project ARRIBA, $26 is being returned to this region. That means that every single person who started the program, because of the jobs that they had before were so minimal, and some of them did not have any job at all, and the types of jobs and the career that they're having now after 2.5 years is such an increase, almost 5 times the earning capacity of what they had. And they have so many work years ahead of them that the return on investment over the next 30 years on a net present value is going to equal to $500 million in investment to El Paso, Texas, because of the graduates that are now into these types of jobs. Those are phenomenal things. And so we know that this model works, and we know that we had to be focused on long-term training, but we also knew that we needed to have funding streams that would understand that it would not take 6 weeks or 6 months to get a graduate, that it was going to take 2 years or 2.5 years. And so if you look on our website, we have a lot of supporters. We have people from the federal government as well as the state government and the local government. But what's key and unique about the organization is that we also have local foundations, private foundations, people, businesses in the area. And that helps us to have a multiple funding approach, which enables us to help somebody for a longer period of time. Whereas the federal government may have some strings attached to funding where we could only use that for a limited period of time, and we know they have to have a long-term training approach, we can use private dollars and we can use some of the business dollars that come in to help someone get started and get them through some of their college so that by the time they have 12 months to 18 months left in their college, we can use the other type of funding to finish them off. And so that's been a key to Project ARRIBA's success, is having a multiple funding approach, having investors partner with our organization because they understand that there's a great return on investing in human capital.
I had a conversation earlier in the day. I gave tests today, and 2 women came to me and said, "Can I put the test off?" I said, "Well, everybody knows I give makeups on the day of the final." I said, "Certainly you can put the test off." And both of them had the same story, that they had children that were in the teenage or early 20s, and they'd been putting off education, and now they're coming back to school, and they're having the job situation, they have the family situation, everything you just said, in a sense. And then another one, with regard to another issue on the telephone, a woman was telling me something similar. She's going back to school now at community college, and she's actually studying with her own 2 children that are now in college, at community college. And we talked about that. And at one point, well, I mentioned 3 points maybe I made. One was, it's good to come back to school. It's good to go ahead and achieve that dream that you have about finishing school. The sad thing is you will not be, if you've done it earlier, as many people do, and I tell this to my classes, get your education when you're young, because then you'll have more productive years of making a salary and more money that you have been putting in for retirement. If you go to work and don't make much money for years, then go back to school, it's not as big a payoff. So that's number one. Another thing is try to find a profession, occupation, or skill that is for our time, that can help you to make a living in our time. And then secondly, be flexible. there may come a time that you have trained for this and then things are changing and you need to retrain. You're running into that, aren't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, all three of those points that you make, we have seen as part of the demographic of our participants that we help. You know, this is kind of a small segue to an article that I read in the New York Times last week, actually, and it talked about, actually it was in the Wall Street Journal, and it talked about how four-year graduates right now in the United States of America have a 50% unemployment rate. And it went on to explain some of the reasons why they have a 50% unemployment rate. And one of those things is a key thing that we know at Project ARRIBA is a major factor, and those are the soft skills that every student should be taught, but unfortunately is not taught, either at home or at the college. Those soft skills that employers are needing, especially now because we're in the generation of, as we spoke about a little bit earlier prior to going on camera, texting and social media, where we don't have a lot of communication skills anymore. And that affects students getting into jobs. So one of the key things, if you add all those 3 points that you looked at, where people need to be retrained or they've got life emergencies going on and they have to put things off until a later time, or they're at an age where they know they can't live paycheck to paycheck any longer, and then you add to that that a lot of us did not come up with those soft skills that employers are looking for, you can see where if we don't do something about this, it's going to cause a major cause for concern, obviously. And here at Project ARRIBA, we have right now a 93% job placement rate. So almost 9 out of every 10 graduates get a job. And our goal, obviously, is to get them right now into jobs that are going to pay them $14 an hour with benefits and a career path. And we feel very strongly that because of the work that folks like Mimi Duran and her case management team do on a weekly basis to be able to provide them the support that they need, to be an ear that they can listen to, a shoulder that they can cry on, to be those individuals who are going to teach them the soft skills that employers are needing. That is why Project ARRIBA has been a success for 14 years. It has nothing to do with myself or anything else. It really has to do a lot with the fact that the case managers are the heartbeat of Project ARRIBA, and they have a passion for being able to see these students finish and get into great jobs.
Give me 2 or 3 success stories. I like this question. Give me some success stories. Tell me about some of them come back to you and say, you have changed my life.
Yeah, you know, it's a beautiful thing. People ask me, why do you work in a nonprofit world? And I say it's simply because of that, because I get individuals saying, this is how much the organization has changed my life. And one story I can think of right now, a few years ago, a young lady was struggling, and she came to us through, I believe it was her church had talked about it. And some of the things that she was struggling with during training was that she did not have a place to live. She had to live in her car with her children during times. We had to find her transitional living help during that time frame. But she continued moving forward to the point where her house was unfinished. They had half of the house roof on, half of the house not roof on, and they lived out by Anapra. So we're talking the colonias out there. And this is one of our very first graduates.
I had a student just like that years ago, except in Socorro. Exactly. You just described it.
Imagine that. And she graduated as a licensed vocational nurse. Mm-hmm. And right now, I believe she is an RN and doing very, very well. I have another success story. We have a young lady who had, I think, 4 children, had a divorce during the time that she was being in training while with Project ARRIBA. So her whole life just changed tremendously. She went to the food stamp office to get food stamps for the very first time in her life. And at the food stamp office, she sees a sign, and it says Project ARRIBA, and it talked about some help that Project ARRIBA could provide. She called our number. To make a long story short, she graduated as an RN from the food stamp office with 4 children, a recent divorcee, to training as an RN, and is now the cardiovascular manager at UMC and supervises 90 other nurses, many of which are our graduates as well. The stories go on. We have
Oh, I
a
know.
teacher who was Teacher of the Year, who graduated as a I think it was a special needs teacher, graduated as Teacher of the Year and is now wanting to continue on with her master's. Just countless of stories, and like I said, on track of graduating our 1,000th.
Wow. We have 3 minutes remaining. There's just so much talent in this community. I raised this in some recent interviews. There's so much talent, but so much of it is kept down because of economics and the lack of opportunity or the lack of inspiration to get them to follow that dream. Last couple of minutes, last words on your project?
You know, our main focus is to provide opportunities for people to succeed. One of the topics that we discussed a couple of weeks ago with some of our participants was don't believe in critics' math. When people come and tell you 1,000 wonderful compliments about you, and then one person tells you that you are no good and that you can't do it, we tend to believe that one person and forget the other 999 that have told us that we can do it. We are committed at Project ARRIBA, through our case management, through the great people that we have working there, to be the 999 voices that will tell them that they can do it, that they need to believe in themselves, that we believe in them, and that we will see them succeed.
Wow. I'm glad I had that chance encounter with Mimi Duran just recently, and she got you to come on this program, and we thank you for that.
Thank you.
Those of you that were watching, you can tell that this is a can-do operation, and we have can-do people that are working in it. So pay attention to Project ARRIBA and keep reading about and hearing about the good work that it does. Tune in for another interesting program in the future. I'm Leon Blevins.